Welcome to Tank Time with Tom. Last week we had Stella, our little puppy, with me at the beginning of the video. And I was going to have her in now, but she's taking a nap. This week we're going to talk about feeding the fish. Well, we know what Stella eats, but what do the fish eat? Okay, we feed them this fish food that comes from the hatchery, and all the teachers that get all the equipment will get a little bag of this, and that's about how much they get. Okay, there's not much in there. You will not need nearly this much. Okay, so how much do you actually feed them? I go in with a popsicle stick and feed them just a little bit. Okay, like that. And I'll go in and I'll just tap it right in the top of the tank like that. Okay, I'll do that every other day, once every 3 days. Even if it's a 3 or 4 day weekend even, you could leave the fish unattended, and that's okay. It's better to slightly underfeed than to overfeed them. If you do overfeed, it could actually pollute the tank. The tank will get cloudy, and you can usually tell that you're overfeeding if the fish drops to the bottom of the tank before the fry have a chance to consume it. Okay, so if you see a lot of food hanging out at the bottom, you've overfed them. Okay, so let's go in with our GoPro camera, take a look inside the tank, and get a closer look and talk a little bit more about their feeding habits.
We try to imitate the natural environment in our tank as much as possible, but one very important thing to notice is how our steelhead fry are facing the current, which is generated by the pump. And this is what they would do in a natural stream. Here they're facing the current and appear to be what's called drift feeding. Just a handful of them are right now because I dunked the camera in, and a lot of them are, believe it or not, they're right behind the camera because they're curious. But you can see a number of them facing the current, which is coming right out of the pump, right here. So by drift feeding, it allows the food to come to the fish while the fish just wait. They're just hanging out, and they let the water bring the food to them. Kind of like a conveyor belt bringing food to the fish. We're going to split the screen so you can see the fry in our tank on the top and steelhead in a real stream on the bottom at the same time. So check it out. Notice how similar they are. And they're both drift feeding. I'm just going to hold the camera right about there so you can see. So what are they eating? I showed you earlier how our fish were eating the fish food. And our fish food is really just, it's a bunch of protein and vitamins and minerals that are mixed up. A lot of fish protein. And it's freeze-dried, so it'll keep. But in the wild, the steelhead trout are going to eat mostly insects and zooplankton, which are in the water or on the surface. The plankton are organisms drifting in the oceans, seas, and bodies of fresh water. And the word zooplankton is derived from the Greek word zoon, which means animal, and planktos, which means wanderer or drifter, which is kind of similar because that's kind of what they're doing. They're drift feeding. Okay, they'll also feed on macroinvertebrates. That's a big word, but that's a small animal lacking a backbone large enough to see without the aid of a microscope. And it can include anything from crayfish, snails, leeches, dragonflies, mayflies, stoneflies, beetles, and caddisflies. And they'll also eat small fish and fish eggs. As they get larger, they will also eat larger fish. And adult steelhead holding in the river prior to spawning don't eat much, but they'll strike at food or artificial lures or a lucky fly. Sometimes they'll even eat garbage or anything that looks like natural food. Okay, we're going to come out of the tank.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.